SpaceX's Starship polarizes, and it's seen an action-packed 2025 to say the least. We're bringing it all together. What happened and why? Was SpaceX successful or is everything failing? What can we expect next? What comes in 2026 and when will the US fly to the moon? When will SpaceX's Lunar Starship get its shot at making history? Will it happen next year? Quo Vadis Starship. Let's do this. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. What a roller coaster year it's been for SpaceX and Starship. Are you ready to see what's still to come? It's an excellent moment to look back, because in just 2 weeks, an era will be over. It was short and fiery, but excitement was always guaranteed, and now it is time to give Block 2 a proper send-off. SpaceX started 2025 with a good mix of high hopes and soaring ambitions. Do you remember that the original idea for the year was to see up to 25 launches? What nobody could expect was that the new Block 2 Starship architecture would pose massive challenges. Significant challenges, that bada boom kind of challenges. Let's take a look together and analyze what happened and what will happen next on Flight 11 and beyond. January started with preparations for Flight 7. Booster 14 was paired with Ship 33, the first Block 2 second stage. And Ship 33 represented a significant upgrade with extended propellant tanks and redesigned fuel systems, but its maiden voyage on January 16th ended in catastrophic failure. Approximately 2 minutes into the second stage burn, a flash was observed near a Raptor vacuum engine in Starship's unpressurized aft section, known as the attic. Sensors then detected a pressure rise indicating a leak. 2 minutes later, another flash occurred, followed by sustained fires in the attic, which led to the controlled shutdown of all but one engine and ultimately resulted in the loss of communication with the ship. The automatic safety system then triggered the flight termination system and kind of saved the day. Despite this setback, Booster 14's successful catch by the launch tower's chopsticks demonstrated the recovery technique again, proving that SpaceX had mastered booster catching. So a tough moment for the upper stage, but also a very promising sign for the booster design. 2 months later, on March 6th, after a thorough investigation and many design changes and improvements incorporated into the next launch candidate, Flight 8 took place. Booster 15 and Ship 34 were supposed to make it all better. The stage was set and Ship 34 was expected to complete the test milestones its predecessor failed to achieve. These included heat tile testing, an altered re-entry profile, and payload deployment. Very important. After a nominal launch and a textbook stage separation, the boost back burn suffered from anomalies. 2 of the 13 engines assigned to this task failed to relight. Nonetheless, the booster achieved its planned trajectory, proving the incredible redundancy in Starship booster propulsion. Remember the early stages of development, when it became clear that Starship boosters would have a ridiculous amount of engines and everyone compared it to the failed Russian N-1 moon rocket? No worries, SpaceX mastered it. For the landing burn, 1 more engine reignited, allowing the booster to decelerate using all 12 planned Raptors. It ultimately returned to Starbase to be caught by the chopsticks. With failed engines, booster catch number 3. There was no doubt anymore that catching a giant rocket booster coming back from space without legs would actually work. Ship 34's journey did not turn out so lucky though. The first sign of trouble was, yet again, a leak. Then a fire appeared in the engine bay. One of the Raptors then likely triggered what is known as an energetic event. And that is just another fancy way of saying big bada boom. After this event, only 2 engines were left intact, leaving the ship out of control. Ultimately, another RUD, or rapid unscheduled disassembly, was inevitable. With this launch still being far from optimal, SpaceX engineers went back to the drawing boards. Ship 35, the next Starship to fly, underwent a series of modifications to mitigate the problems experienced by Ships 33 and 34. By May 27th, another full stack was ready to depart Pad 1's OLM. The booster used for this 9th flight test was the returning Booster 14-2 from January's Flight 7. It was to become the first Super Heavy booster to fly for a second time. After a flawless liftoff, the mission proceeded smoothly beyond stage separation without any issues. Ship 35 lit all 6 of its Raptors, while the booster initiated its return flight by igniting 13 good Raptor engines. Booster 14-2 was purposely not caught by Mechazilla's strong arms. It instead targeted a virtual landing tower in the Gulf. To learn more about what a super heavy booster can take, SpaceX chose a very aggressive angle of attack for this booster return. It held up perfectly until it initiated its landing burn and decided to disassemble rapidly and unscheduled. But expected. After catching 3 boosters, it was time to see what the limits were. Meanwhile, Ship 35 continued on its way. It actually reached the targeted trajectory, but trouble was already brewing again. Internal fuel leakages led to attitude control loss, and shortly after the second stage engine cutoff, the craft started to spin out of control. No in-flight demonstrations could be performed, and ultimately the ill-fated Ship 35 broke up on atmospheric re-entry. The result was that another thorough investigation had to be performed. Ship engineers pored over all the sensor data they could gather and set out to improve the next Block 2 ship in line, Ship 36. At this point, traditional media was in full blast mode. Would SpaceX fail? Would Starship never work? But you were watching Why. Good on you. Mid-June, Ship 36 was out at Massey's test site and performed a successful first static fire. Another one was planned for June 19th. We were already getting ready for Flight 10, and this was the last milestone to tackle before we expected to see the next full stack on the OLM. But as frequent Y-watchers will remember, everybody's plans were changed violently that night. In these moments, it is crucial to have a quick solution. Let me quickly introduce you to something that's all about quick solutions as well. Today's video is sponsored by Quillbot. Most of you probably hate formulating work emails. I am no exception. Fortunately, I have found just the right tool to make it easy. Meet Quillbot. With its Chrome extension, it integrates seamlessly into my digital life. It not only checks my grammar, it also helps me sound more professional. It even helps me to get started by assisting me when drafting an email. Today, thanks to Quillbot, my inbox is so much faster and easier to manage. You can try it for yourself for free. Just install Quillbot using the link displayed on screen. That's it. The day is saved. Onward with SpaceX's take on quick solutions. Shortly before the 6-engine static fire was to begin, Ship 36 transformed into a massive fireball. And that was the biggest bada boom of the year yet. Actually beautiful to watch. I know, I really shouldn't say that, but it has something raw and powerful to it. As it turned out, according to SpaceX, the origin of this catastrophic event was to be found in a nitrogen COPV. Such composite overwrapped pressure vessels are generally exceptionally good at withstanding very high pressures. Failure of a COPV is almost unheard of. On this fateful night, one of them failed below its proof pressure specification. This triggered a chain reaction when parts of this rupturing tank ripped open a methane tank, leading to the complete and very violent destruction of Ship 36. The explosion also heavily damaged the test stand and a lot of the ground support systems, including parts of Massey's tank farm. This incident really threw a spanner in the works of SpaceX's Starship program. It was not just another ship loss, the company also lost its proving ground at Massey's. To maintain hopes for more flights in 2025, they had to come up with an idea for testing ships before Massey's was completely rebuilt. And there was another huge motivation to find a way of testing that did not need Massey's test area at all. Only 2 more Block 2 ships were left before the program would move forward to Block 3. That meant that if they were to rebuild their test site to fit the soon-to-be obsolete Block 2 ships, they'd have to change the entire structure again for future Block 3 Starships after 2 more launches. The solution they came up with seemed all but crazy at first. And before we go into this crazy solution, hit the subscribe button to stay informed. Like this video if it brought you value and become a Y supporter for extra content. Up to 7 picture galleries per week, satellite, helicopter and ground photos and 3D animations. Chat with me and gain more insights on the topic you love. Thank you very much. Also, check out raptor-roost.com for launch viewing tickets. Flight 11 is around the corner and there is simply no better spot to watch from. Alright, crazy SpaceX solutions. Typical SpaceX thinking, a regular transport stand was modified to effectively become an adapter ring that allowed the Starships to interface with Pad 1's OLM, which is, of course, built to support boosters, not ships. With this adapter in place and temporary fuel lines hooked up to Ship 37 starting July 30th, the static fire and spin prime test campaign ultimately lasted until August 13th after some minor problems. It really is a perfect example of SpaceX's usual approach. Quick, dirty, and outside-the-box thinking. They seem to eat obstacles for breakfast. To the point that at this stage, when a problem arises, I usually estimate the time it will take and then half that to come up with a reasonably accurate estimate at Y. Simple trick. Now, we had a prepared and tested Ship 37 and Booster 16. Flight 10 was not far away, in half the time it should have taken. August 26th was the day, only around 1.5 months after the explosion and the total loss of essential test equipment. While the previous mishap had caught the attention of all those who are still convinced that Starship is a failure, the press was focusing on this 10th flight test. Fortunately, Flight 10 completely transformed the narrative. Ship 37 became the first Block 2 to complete its full mission profile. For the first time, we saw the payload door open and the innovative PEZ dispenser mechanism successfully deploy 8 Starlink simulators. Yes! With the dump links out of the way, Ship 37 demonstrated a successful in-flight engine relight. Booster 16 ended this test flight with a planned hard splashdown in the Gulf. With it being the second to last Block 2 booster, there was no need even to attempt a catch this time around. Nonetheless, the booster was able to gather additional data as it was sent on another aggressive angle of attack, albeit less so than on the previous flight. Ship 37 went all the way to re-entry. SpaceX had also designed a radical last phase of this flight for the Starship, during which it encountered another destructive event in the engine bay. But that didn't stop it. After all, the goal was to find out just how much beating a Starship can take before failing. The rugged ship went through the entire ordeal relatively unscathed and ultimately landed within just meters of the target spot in the Indian Ocean. For the first time, we saw an orange Starship as metallic demo heat tiles had oxidized and discolored a large surface area. I call it the Great Redeemer. As much as it was great for us to see the success, it was essential for the Starbase team. Thousands of workers and engineers got a morale boost from this flight. Well done, Team SpaceX. Now, we are not far away from Flight 11, pairing Ship 38 and the previously flown Booster 15-2. The final flight profile has not been made public yet, but we can expect it to be very similar to the previous one. Following Flight 11, a significant change will occur around Starbase. The transition to Block 3 still requires extensive testing before we see the all-new Pad 2 catering to a flight for the very first time with Flight 12. It is doubtful that SpaceX will manage to launch Flight 12 before the end of the year. What we can expect, though, is a lot of very exciting tests in the coming months. Would you have expected such a turbulent 2025 at Starbase in December 2024? And what do you think 2026 will bring? Let me know your predictions in the comments. I'll save as many as I can for in a year. Let's see who's right. This brings us to the latest news about when we can expect Flight 11 to happen. It's been pushed by a week to October 13th. We know this through another notice to mariners published just an hour after we released the Friday episode. It does look like this is not related to engines, as the static fire looked absolutely nominal. The other logical component would be the heat shield, as SpaceX is introducing a significant change on Flight 11. Crunch wrap everywhere. All tiles will have a ceiling surrounding them this time. And I am very curious to see how this will perform. Do you want to see how SpaceX is doing from the air with your own eyes? Go to redlineheli.com/Felix, $25 off for anyone using the link. The Redline Helicopter team is waiting for you. They'll show you the same Starbase views our photographer gets on his Starbase flights. Unforgettable stuff. Last episode, we reported on how a NASA panel expressed their doubts about SpaceX being able to hit their deadline of mid-2027 for the Starship HLS, aka Human Landing System. Indeed, current projections indicate the timeline is under significant pressure. But we've seen SpaceX do this time and time again. Here's the important takeaway. Even if they don't hit that deadline and Artemis gets delayed further due to SpaceX, any extension may likely be worth it. Just take Crew Dragon for example. It's exceeded expectations and provided us with a highly reliable option for the past 5 years. It's also still our only option to reach the ISS crewed. So what's left to get that oversized broomstick in the air, or rather into space, and then onto the moon? What comes after 2025? The 3 main development milestones that must be completed before we can schedule crewed lunar flights are additional Starship testing and development, on-orbit cryogenic propellant transfer, and NASA's critical design review. Continued development and flight testing of the Starship vehicle also include the rollout and initial flights of the upgraded Starship version 3 architecture. Hardware reliability is crucial for any vehicle that carries people. That's right, we need to get to that next version first. Although initial flights will only be more test flights, version 3 is crucial for the capabilities of the HLS lander, Starship tanker, and orbital propellant depot variants. The reliable flight and reuse of Starship must be demonstrated at a very high cadence because each refueling of a Starship will require multiple flights, which is part of the second significant milestone. But what about it? I hear so many different estimates. How many refueling flights will it be? Excellent question. The math is simple. A V2 Starship holds 1,500 tons of propellant. A V3 Starship will have 1,600. Roughly the same can be expected for an HLS Starship. The goal for a V3 Starship is to carry a 100-ton payload. That's 15 flights. A V4 is supposed to carry 200 tons or more. That would be 8 flights. That's it. Now you know. The on-orbit cryogenic propellant transfer demonstration is widely considered the single most challenging milestone before an actual landing. Starship HLS cannot reach the moon without being fully refueled in Earth orbit by multiple Starship tanker flights. SpaceX must successfully launch a propellant depot, send multiple tankers to rendezvous and dock with it, and then demonstrate the large-scale, long-duration transfer and storage of super-cooled liquid methane and liquid oxygen. They sure make it sound easy on paper now, don't they? Following the successful completion of these 2 major technological demonstrations, it must then pass NASA's formal critical design review. This will signify that the design is mature, stable, and ready for the final assembly and qualification of the flight hardware intended for the moon. Once this design is finalized and these key systems are proven, the final flight milestone required before the official Artemis 3 crewed lunar landing is an uncrewed lunar landing demonstration. Most don't even have that on their radar. For this, an uncrewed Starship HLS must fly a complete end-to-end rehearsal mission. This is basically the exact same mission of the one that will be crewed but without people. This vehicle must launch, of course be refueled in Earth orbit, perform a translunar injection burn, enter a near rectilinear halo orbit near the moon, and descend to the lunar surface. Finally, it must ascend from the surface and successfully restart its engines to validate the entire flight profile. Again, they make it sound really easy on paper. The current target for this flight is no earlier than 2026. Once the uncrewed lunar landing demonstration has all its boxes checked, we'll finally be able to see the first crewed lunar landing in over 50 years. I've been waiting my entire life, literally. And this Artemis 3 crewed lunar landing will involve a crew transfer from the NASA Orion spacecraft to the Starship HLS in lunar orbit, followed by descent to the surface for a roughly 1-week expedition. After spending a week in what will likely be the moon's south polar region, the crew will then return to Orion and back home. This remains officially targeted for no earlier than mid-2027. Now, this will make headlines around the world, but will the world understand what happened? While this first lunar landing after more than 50 years will feel about the same as the last, it will be a quantum leap for spaceflight. It will stay for a week, but it could stay for a month or more. Current NASA estimates state that after being refueled in orbit, it can deliver 10 to 20 tons of payload during a crewed mission, and up to 100 tons for a cargo-optimized variant. Reusable, meaning you can fly it back up, reload it with fuel and cargo, and go for it again. So theoretically, this would mean that if SpaceX can bring the launch costs of Starship only down to what a Falcon 9 launch costs them, they can fly 100 tons of cargo to the moon for around $400 million. In comparison, Blue Origin's Blue Moon Mark II lander is set to deliver 20 tons to the lunar surface in a cargo variant without crew, and it will cost around $200 million. That's the current alternative plan. This is a very conservative estimate. SpaceX has repeatedly stated that launch costs for Starship will be below $10 million per flight in its fully reusable variant at some point. Heck, Musk even said $2 to $5 million. If they achieve the 10 million mark, a 100-ton delivery to the moon without wasting any hardware would come down to under $100 million. To put it into perspective, that's what you currently pay for a satellite delivery to LEO. All this is still to come, and we haven't even mentioned flights to Mars, orbital shipyards, or even crazier concepts. And SpaceX is not alone in this second space race. The future of spaceflight seems brighter than ever. That's it for today. Smash that like button, subscribe for more. This is what fuels the algorithm, and this is how you can help us for free. And if you want to learn more about how SpaceX's Raptor 3 engine works, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. The launch towers come up with a reasonable but you watched why. Good on you.